I believe that this guy right here is going to be our first timber for the timber frame. So we're going to turn this into an 8x8 wall post. This has to have a minimum of 11.5-inch diameter to square off at 8x8. 15 on this end. And we have 14.5 on that end. That's a beautiful taper right there. Next thing we want to do, now we've talked about this in old videos, I'm talking a long time ago, since this is going to be a timber, going to be a wall post, I want this heartwood, this pith right here, centered in the log. And you can see where this is checking a little bit. You may not be able to see it on the camera, they're pretty fine lines. It's checking just a little bit around the heartwood. So the reason that we try to center this is because if you get it checked all the way from one side, usually it'll stop at the heartwood. So when you're milling timbers for a timber frame, you either don't want any heartwood in it or you want to box it. Now you have to get some pretty big logs to get it so you have no heartwood in it. So I prefer to mill it pretty much with the pith in the center. So we have to make sure that it's the same measurement on both ends. And you can kind of eyeball this a little bit. I've done it enough now where I can kind of see it. So we're good on this end. That is right about dead on. Now if you're a 1/2 inch off or something like that, it's not a big deal. But another thing that we're wanting to avoid here is grain run out on the timbers. So if you don't take the time to raise up one end of the log, if you've got a substantial, say a 1 or an even 2 inch, 1 inch, somewhere in there, if you have a taper that big, your grain's going to be running out and you're going to have a weaker timber. So that's something to really pay attention to when you're going to mill your logs for this. At the next process of getting this log ready is you want to plan out your cuts. And I just kind of like to just kind of half-ass mark it out so I can make sure that where I'm cutting, I'm going to have enough room on this log. A lot of times I'll take a tubing level and do this. But like everything else, I forget to bring it all the time. Double check ourselves. Nice. Okay, so that leaves us, and this is where your pith is not always centered in your trees. In fact, a lot of times, I can almost say it's hardly ever perfectly centered in your trees. You know, one side might grow a little quicker than the other, or a little thicker, depending on conditions, you know, a lean or whatever, what have you. There's all kinds of reasons why it would grow different, but on this side, we're going to have about 4 inches. This side, we're going to have about 2 3/8, 3 1/4, and 3 inches. So what you could do at this point, you can kind of get an idea of what you're going to get out of these boards. Now this one we should be able to get, say, a 1x10, maybe a 1x8. Down here, probably a couple of 1xs. Probably get a 2x8 out of this side right here. Now that's what we're going to concentrate on, is just pretty much you want to get as much out of these logs as you possibly can. I mean, you're taking a lot of time, a lot of work to cut these things down, drag them out of the woods, or if you're like me, you're doing everything the hard way. But, you know, it just wouldn't be the same here if we didn't do it that way. So I think what we're going to do, get the mill ready to go, tension that blade up, fire this thing up, and see what develops.